After choosing empowerment over dread, I began searching for meaningful and effective solutions to put into practice in my own life. Progressive Hedonist is a podcast to share the ways we can take on climate change through food and joy. On days when this seems completely impossible, this podcast is a reminder that each of us can make an impact. I'm Dana Cowan. Join me in conversations with thought leaders like Alice Waters, Andrew Zimmern, Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, and more. We can learn together what is possible. You can listen anywhere podcasts can be found and join the conversation on Instagram at progressive_hedonist.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
So you don't charm the devil with your rock and roll load. Knows that country music's gonna save your soul. The devil runs his groove in them rhythm and blues that sound. It's gonna get you sun in the air.
Welcome back to The Speakeasy. I'm Damon Boelte.
And I'm Sother Teague.
And I'm Greg Benson.
I threw an and in there. I left you out. Sorry. You want to start over?
It's okay. I knew I was here, Sother. No, we're not going back, baby. We're not gonna do it again. We're gonna just
Fuck it. We'll do it live.
Radio.
That's right.
Exactly. But yeah, it's this is another one of these times where by the time you're hearing my voice, you're in the future and you'll know if the Yankees won on October 30th and extended the World Series or not. But if you were, you Sother, I guess, had some sports related questions about a play that happened in the game last night. I would be happy to clear that up for you if you want.
Sure. I mean, I was traveling. I just got home late last night from beautiful Minneapolis, Minnesota, where Maury Margot did a pop-up and takeover at Flora Bar with Vecchio del Capo and Minnesota Ice. Really fun time. Me and Bruce went out there and had a 2-night takeover. But this morning, when I woke up, one of the first things that was in my news feed was a photo of some Yankees fans pulling a ball out of a Dodgers hand. And I was quite confused as to the whole photograph. It was just a photograph. I didn't see any moving video. So tell me what I was sort of looking at.
Well, okay. So first of all, treat yourself to the moving video because you're worth it. Like it's the still doesn't really do justice to like the sort of the clam prying open maneuver that the Yankees fan was trying to do of the glove of a Major League Baseball player and future Hall of Famer. So
in the World Series.
In the World Series. And not just in the World Series, in the first, I believe it was in the first or second inning of the World Series.
First inning, it said,
early on in the game. Yeah. So I'm just going to set the scene for you. So the Yankees are down 3-0. They're facing elimination. Yankees fans don't take to insults to their prowess lightly. There was a palpable air of agita in and around New York City last night, particularly up in the Bronx. I went out to Staten Island to watch it, so I think I sort of got it by proxy, kind of like, on the horseshoe kind of wrapped around the other way and at the complete opposite end of New York. I was also kind of feeling that tension in the air. But first inning, fly ball, wasn't even a potential home run. It was in foul territory.
Right.
Mookie Betts, outfielder for the Dodgers, goes out and tries to grab it. And some fans, first of all, tried to catch it before he did. And when they were unsuccessful, another fan attempted to pry his glove open and set the ball loose so that they could get it. Now, there is a rule in Major League Baseball where at fan interference, that's something that has been created by Major League Baseball since the Steve Bartman incident earlier on this century, where there's a guy who basically had to flee Chicago because he did that. He caught a ball that would have been an out, and it resulted in a play later in the Cubs getting eliminated. So there is a rule against doing that, and there are rules to make it so that the game is fairly executed, but that does not capture, I think, just the sheer determination of this man to get that ball out of Mookie Betts's glove. And they had words about it afterwards, and frankly, I don't know what happened to that fan, but like I spent the rest of that game being like, I want to watch that guy go for every single ball that's in foul territory for the rest of the game. Like every single time there's a pop fly, like even on the opposite side of the stadium, I was like, I want that guy to be there. I want him to be there just to like try and snag it. I loved the just terrier-like determination of this man to get this baseball in the World Series. So I don't, maybe he's like barred for life from Yankee Stadium in jail. Maybe they gave him season tickets for next year. I don't know. But whatever happened to him, I hope he's doing well. He had a good time at the game.
I'm sure someone will follow up on this guy's journey.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they already are. What was like the guy who a few World Series ago got hit in the chest with a home run while holding 2 pitchers of Bud Light and did not drop the beers. Budweiser actually gave that man, like, they flew him out to Texas to watch the next game. And I think they like turned him into an ad and everything. So there you go. These are the paths to stardom. Getting hit by baseballs, TikTok, podcasting. We're almost there, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay the course. Stay the
We're
course.
Exactly.
2 away. Well, what's a slow grind towards fame and success? Distilling, maybe?
Probably.
I would say.
Well, fortunately, we have someone who can speak to that in the studio with us right now. We have Claire Marin from Pollinator Spirits. So, Claire, thank you so much for joining in and for also giving me a chance to give some baseball oratory to our listenership today. It's good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's amazing to be here with the 3 of you. It's I'm like pinching myself a little bit.
Oh, maybe we're already there, guys. Maybe we've made it and we just don't know.
Oh, we've made it.
But
We're
of
at the
course, we
peak.
have to talk about baseball today because it's a big deal. It's a big, big deal.
Yeah, nothing else is really
thank you,
going on
Claire.
out there.
That's true.
Nothing else noteworthy to talk about.
You all made me promise not to talk about politics too much at the top of the show. So this is what you get. This is what you get. If we're not going to talk about the election, we're talking about the World Series.
I'm unclear
Or
on
we
which
could
is...
talk about distilling. Let's talk about distilling. Claire, tell us a little bit about Pollinator Spirits. First of all, where are you based and how did you get into this in the first place?
Yeah, so I am actually right now I'm speaking to you from West 28th Street in New York, where I have an apartment.
Oh, hey neighbor.
For many years, right on the Flower Street. So it's a really sort of exciting day every time you step out there. You know, it's just gorgeousness everywhere from all over the world. You know, I don't know if you've ever walked this street, but it's great. My other place where I venture quite a bit is where my distillery is in Long Eddy, New York. So it's in Sullivan County, at the very end of Sullivan County. So it straddles Sullivan and Delaware County. We have a lot of space. It's gorgeousness up there. It's really, very
Right on
raw.
the Pennsylvania border, right?
Very much so. Yes, Damon. It's the Delaware River separates us from Pennsylvania. The other side of the river is Pennsylvania. It's wild. And people don't understand how far west we are until you tell them that, because they think the Catskills, they think Hudson River, and I'm like, no, it's the other side of the tracks. It's the other river, I love it because of its rawness for sure, but also in New York in general, but that area too, the natural resources are just amazing. Like our water is incredible. There's a lot of distance between homes. So it's still, our own beautiful access to water and air and,
And you're pretty close to Cooperstown. Like you're it's about an hour and a half away from Cooperstown.
Yes.
There's our baseball tie-in.
Boom, there you go.
Because there's also a Cooperstown cocktail that is a riff on a martini, and you can totally make it with Pollinator Spirits.
Oh my God.
Boom!
That's the show, everybody.
Yeah, wrap it up.
Thanks for listening.
It's a beautiful area. I love it out there. It's awesome. I've been out there a ton of times. It's a great place to ride motorcycles. It's just like So
we get a lot of that. Of that. Route 97, Eagles Neck, it's called. Like it's just beautiful up there. You ride along the Delaware. So I have a tasting room in Callicoon, 12 miles south of Long Eddy, where the distillery is, and we get tons of motorcycles. Like just awesome groups of people that just come out the minute the weather is just semi okay.
Right.
they just venture
Yeah.
out, and it's really beautiful to see that. Yeah.
So
Let's
Claire,
let's
did you start out as a city gal that moved up there for the resources, or did you start out as a country gal that comes down here to the city because this is where the business is?
No, I really started out as a city gal. Going up there, my partner took me up there 21 years ago. I hadn't really um experienced the Catskills, that part of the Catskills. I'd been to like Phoenicia and, Kingston and,
Mm.
a little bit north of that and stuff, but not with my family growing up, but not really so much as an adult. And then when I went up there, I just totally fell in love with it. And the door that opened all this was really beekeeping. I started beekeeping as a hobby
Mm.
and would do it on the weekends, come to the city, work. I was in publishing. I ran like media companies, sales teams, and for a few years, and 15 years, actually. A few years is 15 years. And went up there, and that kept my sanity for years, just being able to like hang out with the bees and harvest honey, bring honey to the city to friends and stuff. And they were all like, this honey's amazing. You got to do something with this, And I created Catskill Provisions in 2010, resigned from my job, not having another place to go other than my office and my home office in my apartment. And I just was like, wow, I really did it. I really did it. So I started selling my honey to restaurateurs, chefs that I knew from frequenting their restaurants. And they're still my customers today for the honey that is Catskill Provisions, distributed by Baldor, big distributor here in New York. And started really studying distilling because I just loved whiskey. I loved gin. The whole thing just really attracted me.
Isn't
Yeah.
it amazing how, like, just a couple hours away from Manhattan, you can be from the most insane place in the world to like some of the most peaceful territory, like
Yeah,
just
I
right
love
there.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
about our state, right? Our state is like so diverse that it's really kind of amazing that you're right. I mean, in 2 hours, I felt like I was worlds and worlds away.
Right.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
so talk
cool.
to us a little bit about like where did this? I don't want to get too deep down the rabbit hole here, but like where did this fascination or desire to? People aren't generally drawn to bees. What
Yeah,
made
I'm
you want to
Yeah.
be?
allergic.
What made you want to have an apiary and bees and then harvest their honey? And then what do I do with all this honey? I guess I sell it. But then where did I guess I want to see the connection between that and then the distilling, because I know that the bees have a huge. I mean, you're called pollinator spirits, right? Bees are pollinators. So
Yeah.
so tie these two pieces together for me.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things about pollination, right, is that we can't live without it, right? So we've all
Right.
come to that
Mm-hmm.
thought in especially in the last 10 years, right? We're so much more aware of it, and they are incredible beings, right? The more you know about them, the more attractive they become because they're just self-sufficient, incredible. They're genius, the way that they've developed through millennia, right? And so I was very attracted to the whole idea of entering another world. It's kind of like scuba diving, right? Or snorkeling or something like that. You're looking into another world on this planet. I mean, we're not a part of that world at all. They're doing their thing, and it was really incredible, but it really opened up for me. I gave Kathy, my partner, a beekeeping kit the first few months that we had gotten together, and I didn't know what to give her. And she was an ag major, and I thought, wow, well, no one's ever given her a beekeeping kit. I know that, I guarantee that, right? And so of course, it made a big impact. The impact that I wanted, but I didn't realize that she was going to be like, yeah, okay, it's cool. I just went nuts right in it. And so it's kind of like I was totally taken by it, and we started the first hive, and then it led to a second hive. And
I mean, sure, once you have one, you gotta have two, I guess, right?
you gotta have two. I mean, they do say, like, now I've learned that you really should have two so that you understand which is stronger and they can work together and that sort of thing. So typically you want to start with a couple for at least. And then I started thinking about the whole farm distilling movement was going on in New York at that time. It was like 2006, 7, 8, when Tuttletown, right? And Ralph
Lorenzo. Yep.
was going up to Albany. And, these stories kept coming up through friends that I had, that I still have. But, so I started hearing his name a lot and what was going on. And, the area where we are, and Damon, you might have noticed when you come up to that Western Catskill area, it's not that developed, and there's obviously agriculture is huge there, but there, farmers aren't particularly thriving many times, right? It's a really, really difficult life, right? And
I'm from Oklahoma. I know all about it.
Wow. Okay. So, it really, your heart goes out to them. They just are every single day is the same. There's no holiday. There's no,
Right.
And so I really decided that I wanted to do more to support that. And I do believe that without the beekeeping, I don't think I would have gotten to that. I wouldn't have gotten that deep into it, but it connected me to agriculture. And then, of course, climate and what we're doing, what could we do better, and distilling was a way of bringing back focus on agriculture. And in New York at that time, too, let's not forget the big thing that was possible fracking, right? So fracking was a big, big conversation we were having then. And we were all mortified of this, right? We didn't know. It was like the unknown. It was horrible. Oh my God, And so all of that caused a few of us to really focus on food based businesses, and agriculture was really the base for the farm distilling movement. So it made sense to me to support that. I started talking to farmers about growing rye versus corn and what do we need and what's good and what's bad, but
it's interesting when you say that, because when I've always thought of spirits as wine, beer, I think of all of it as an agricultural product, especially because think about it, back in the day, you mentioned that, you got all these farmers in upstate and outer, the rest of New York, if you will. New York is a huge state. It's people don't think about the rest of it, but it's actually, that's how prohibition was passed. Everyone in New York City, they were against prohibition, but they got the vote because they went upstate and got the rest of the state to vote against or for prohibition. So but yeah, when you think about even nowadays, there's TV shows about moonshiners, it's they're farmers and they happen to be, it's the best way to preserve the agricultural, the beginning, so you're fermenting and then you're distilling, and then it's oh, well, now it doesn't turn because it's fully converted into alcohol, that is high enough proof, so it absolutely is an agricultural product. And so you mentioned Ralph Lorenzo and Tuttletown Spirits and the work they did in the mid 2000s to get distillation kind of legalized, if you will, in the state of New York. It was all based on agriculture. So it's a super, super important part to the story of spirits in the United States, but especially in the state of New York, for sure. So that's very cool that you're doing that.
Yeah, then there were 1 or 2 distilleries right after by the third one, and then all of a sudden there's 152 now.
Right.
So it's a lot, just distilleries. It's crazy. I choose to distill on the grain. For me, it's very much making that mash. Cool. Is extremely important to me. The smells of it, the textures, temperatures. I'm really, really into that. And
it's a lot of fun to clean up the still after that too. Just more work.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. That's not a great part of it, but very important. But I will tell you the spent grains all go to farmers. Like I have two farmers that I work with who just feed it to their pigs. I'm lucky enough to have a couple of good pig farmers, because they don't even have to do anything to it. If you're a cow farmer, I think you have to add some things to it. There's some additives that you have to, give them in addition. But and so it works great. It's really like a closed loop, system that.
Can you explain the spent grain thing? Because I think it's one of those things that I don't think a lot of our listeners might know about. And it's really cool. It's like it's a very sustainable kind of practice, right? You're using every bit of it, and I think for some people they hear that you're taking the grain that you use to ferment and turn into alcohol. And they're like, so you're getting these pigs drunk? It's really not that, it's can you explain
not at all. Hopefully not. But it does give us, some good smiles, like the commentary is always, oh, the happy pigs, that kind of thing. There's always a little something, that we have to talk about, of course. But it's when you extract the alcohol from your fermentation, your stripping run, the product are your low wines, right? And then the solids are what is left, and all that should not have any alcohol in it. If anything, there's
all the
tiny
ethanol goes off first, and
yeah.
So can you tell us, like, you started this distillation after your apiary had really had you transfixed by beekeeping, and so you have whiskeys, but you also have gin and vodka and amaro. Was that the chicken or the egg? Like which spirit? What was your favorite spirit that you really wanted to go for? Because I know, like, a lot of times, a new distillery, they'll, it's easy to make gin and sell it, or not easy to make gin, but it's easy to sell it quickly. Whereas, your whiskey, you've got to wait for it to age. So are you a fan of all the spirits, or was there a particular one that you wanted to go for first?
Yeah, for me, I think it was the attraction to whiskey was really important, as an important connection, personal connection. I wasn't raised, interestingly enough, I wasn't raised in a household where my parents drank whiskey. My mother's from Spain. I was born in Madrid. My father's French. So it was wine, champagne. My parents were not having martinis, I think on my own, as I kind of, grew up, I had, an affinity to whiskey. And in speaking to farmers upstate too, I learned that rye is a really sustainable thing to grow. It doesn't require a lot of water. It's a cover crop, right? So for them, it's amazing. It helps with erosion, and also during times that they're not growing something else. So it just seemed like a wonderful sort of thing for me to focus on. And I bought, I don't know, 10, 15 bottles of rye. I know you guys can all empathize with having like hundreds of bottles with a little bit missing, because of course, you just have to taste it all. And you don't want to drink them all because you always want to remember what it was. And, so I had a lot of those. And rye was so spicy and complex and hot, that it was a perfect place for me to add my own sort of touch to it with our honey. Our late summer honey happens to have a lot of, I feel, rye notes in it. The color is very similar to the whiskey. And it just has that spiciness and complexity. So it married well with ryes. I tried it with bourbons, and bourbons are much softer in nature, and it just sweetened it. And I didn't want the honey to be a sweetener. I wanted it to be somewhat of a marriage, right? Rye does have honey notes in it, as you all know. And so it just made all the sense in the world for me to do this and come out with New York honey whiskey initially. And I had other distilleries make it for me for a few years. I started that in 2010. 2013 was the first bottling. And I was talking to Sother earlier about it, and I made the first rookie mistake of going out there in November with new bottles of a new product, with knowing nothing about anything other than I have this great thing. And I sold it into some stores. It's so crazy. Like everyone's like OND, OND, and I'm just,
Yeah.
I was able to do it. So rookie mistake that, I got beginner's luck, I guess.
For our listeners out there, OND stands for October, November, December. We could call it Q4, but it depends on different businesses' fiscal years, So OND is it's the like crunch time for the industry, and it's like if you're a supplier, you do not go trying to sell to people if you haven't sold it by September. You're kind of done for the rest of the year, right? So that's funny that you were doing that in November. And I love the honey whiskey thing because it's just add bitters and you've got yourself an old fashioned, right? So
exactly.
It does make a really, really nice old fashioned for sure. And the rye, it's still our lead spirit. People love it. It's very much. It's interesting how we think of whiskey only as a winter thing, possibly, but I think appreciation for it is year round. It really is. I see that in our natural sales and attraction to it.
Once you start getting into spirits and cocktails, and then you start realizing that, we think of I personally like the fall. This is like my favorite time of year for cocktails because I like things like Manhattans, and things with more bitters and spice and stuff like that. But really, when you think, we've talked about this on the show kind of recently, all the baking spices that we think of, with winter, they all come from tropical islands. And then also citrus really grows in the winter times. And,
That's right.
And we think about sour, citrusy cocktails is like summer drinks, but really, I mean, if you're doing it right, it's more of a winter drink. So it's kind of but that's something that you just figure out by just experience, right? You learn from experience. And I think that, I mean, my wife and I, we drink whiskey highballs year round. I mean, a disgusting amount of whiskey highballs. So and that's wintertime, that's summertime for sure. And, I don't think that there's any season for anything anymore. If once you dig into it and you're like, and I really like situational and occasional drinking and eating, and when you talk about, you kind of romanticize rye as a grain, as a plant, it's to me, it's something that it's so earthy. It's like going to Oaxaca and having mezcal out in the agave fields, or being in France or Spain and having champagne or cava, on a winery. And it's just that once you go to these distilleries in New York and go to the fields where the rye is growing, it's it starts tasting different to you. It really does. You kind of once you breathe the air and you see the land, it's all of a sudden it changes your palate a little bit, right?
Yeah, it really does. Time and place, it's so important to come up and experience it. I see when people come and visit us, and I mean, I don't have, a fancy distillery. It's a, production facility. I say to people, but it's being there and you see, the tanks, the machines, the place, the smell, there's so much to that. I was initially super attracted to distilling, I think, because of, culturally being brought up the way I was. It was our bonds really came from sharing food, drinks, beverage. It was all very, we went to wineries all the time, and basements where the wine was being aged, and and the smells of all that. There's just such an attractiveness to all that. I think and then barrels. If you're lucky enough to be surrounded by barrels, that's a really cool day in your life. You don't forget that,
Oh, wow.
and,
Yeah, totally.
And then you add the cooking aspect to it. Mashing is cooking, guys. It
Right.
really is. I mean, and so I've really felt at home, doing it. And it feels like second nature to me,
And it
to
feels
just,
cool to be a part of something that's, centuries or, millennia old. It's like
oh, totally.
been doing this for a long time. And when you're around those barrels and just like, even like kind of smelling the angel share that's seeping out of the barrels, at times, just like it just changes your perspective on just what ends up in the glass at a restaurant or at home or a bar. It's like you build a personal connection with it, and so that's cool. And like it seems like this all happens so organically for you. I love that you bought this beekeeping kit for your partner, and then it became yours. It's like I bought a really nice chef's knife for my wife years ago, and it's made me a better cook.
Yeah.
I'm the one who uses it.
You bought her a knife with your initials engraved on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Here, honey, I got you this nice commemorative baseball from the World Series.
I bought you a left-handed guitar.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, Greg Benson here, and if you're a regular listener of The Speakeasy, you probably know by now that I've been working to bring 100% pure, actually good-tasting agave nectar to the United States for a minute, but I wanted to give you a bit of an update. I actually got to travel to the farm where these amazing plants have been growing for decades, and it was just a genuinely moving experience. I got to see these agave in their natural habitat and see what it means to Rogelio, the farmer, to be able to care for the descendants of the same agave that his grandfather was growing almost a full century ago. That's why I'm proud to announce Quixote Imports, a new venture that's dedicated to preserving these agave and, yes, still bringing in the same fantastic, earthy, lightly fruity agave nectar that's going to make you wonder why you've been wasting your time with the crap at the grocery store. Plus, our fans here at the Speakeasy can get free shipping at checkout with promo code SPEAKEASY, so don't wait. Head on over to quixoteimports.com and see what agave nectar is actually supposed to taste like, and use promo code SPEAKEASY for free shipping. Salud.
I love all this discussion about like this being such, a part of the human story and the human tradition, even going back before like distilling was invented, of like, setting the table and like we gather for meals. That is the thing that we as a species get together for. So kind of, looking ahead to the future. I mean, this is, we talk a lot on the show. We do a lot of gazing into our crystal ball, reading the tea leaves of just like, where's the industry going? Like, what's happening? Why aren't the kids drinking as much anymore? And, I would love to hear sort of what you have seen change in the marketplace since you've been here, and where you think, or where your plans are for your brand, at least, to go next.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, Greg, because I was actually talking to Georgia about it this morning. I was like, I kind of want to interview you guys in many ways, ask you those questions, because you have such, finger on the pulse of all this industry in really interesting ways. But that's another time.
We all hate talking about ourselves, but we'll do it for you. You were saying, Claire, about
where we're going next, right?
Yes, where we're going next.
It's interesting. Like as a brand for me, I think we're, and it's interesting, Sother, you kind of touched on this earlier, but it takes time. It really takes time. You distill, you create this thing, and it morphs and ebbs and flows, and the marketplace, you respond to the marketplace and what it really wants. And, and now I am close to, 2008. So it's 6 years since my whiskey's now is 6 years old. And so I am now launching December 1st. We're going to start with our single barrel series, because some of these barrels that I'm opening now are like really delicious. And, they definitely are different than everything else that I've been blending. And, I've been blending some of my barrels and buying barrels from other distilleries that have had, more mature product within New York State. And so I was up to about 50% mine. Now it's really 75% to 100 in many cases. So now these barrels are so beautiful. So single barreling for us is something that's new and is amazing. But also, the marketplace is changing, right? Your drinking habits are a little bit different. I think cost of drinking has, gone up quite a bit, right? So there are younger people that now are saying, I can't really go out and spend $17, $20 for a cocktail, so
Right.
that inevitably is going to change what they do. And I think some of the CBD and, other things coming into the market too is, so it's becoming a little bit different. I believe that it is becoming a better marketplace for people like us. The smaller brands that offer more of a connection to what you're drinking, why you're drinking it, why you're making those choices, and taste, quality. I believe that consumers now are so much better educated about what they want out of a cocktail. They may not have 5 cocktails, they'll have
Right.
2, but they want them to be damn good cocktails.
Yeah.
Everyone knows a good cocktail now. Nobody's having
it's undeniable that the consumer education level is folds over what it was even 5 years ago, much less 10 years ago,
It's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember talking about chill filtering because it was the only way that a consumer would understand whiskey, being completely clear, having no sediment whatsoever. Little by little, they came to understand that sediment is a lot of where the flavor is, and
Right.
some is a welcome thing. When it happens in the bottle, you're a lucky person that you got that bottle, So now no one talks about chill filter. We actually brag about not chill filtering, and that
Right.
was, I remember in 2013, that was the talk, that was the conversation. It was on labels. It's wild,
Yeah. There's also, like you were saying, like the time and place, when it comes to, I think what we're talking about here with like the higher prices of cocktails, like across the board, like anywhere you go, like Eric Castro down in San Diego, he bought this dive bar right across from the hotel that his group took over, and it's a fantastic place. But he bought this dive bar, and he was like, "Yeah, man." He's like, "Guess what? I'm not going to have any cocktails over $12." And I think there's like kind of a movement to go to that, like, because like if you can't figure out how to make a cocktail great for a little bit less money, there's one part of it. I think that's something I've been seeing lately. But also, it's like, yeah, like you get what you pay for, basically, right? So like you get a higher quality product, and yeah, maybe people are drinking a little bit less these days, but they're still going out, and they're just not having 5 cocktails; they're having 2. But they're you got to really know your shit these days. You got to like bring your A game, and I think that's really also a testament to New York City. By the way, I love hearing the siren in the background. I'm actually in Marin County, Claire. I'm in your namesake county in San Francisco Bay Area. But that's how we're still a New York City based radio show when you hear sirens in the background.
Sirens.
But it's another thing too. It's like, knowing where your stuff comes from. I think that's a huge thing too. It's like I live out here in wine country, and it's great to be able to go to wineries all the time, and that gives you a sense of time and space, and like origin, and going to your distillery. Right? You're connected with the product, and that builds brand loyalty. And that's something that's special for people. I mean, especially, I know a lot of the places in, outside of New York, and even in New York, you can have your wedding there, and then you're really connected to it, like it's an event space as much as it is a production facility. And, there's something really cool about that, especially, for well, we all are here on this show, but, I'm a huge Amaro person. Like I love Amaro, and I love that I know we've talked a lot about whiskey on this episode when it comes to Pollinator, but there you've got your gin, and you've got your
Gin is
Amaro.
key. Gin is really key for me, and I think the idea of the Amaro, the necessity for an Amaro, an aperitivo style Amaro, a slash aperitivo Amaro, because I wanted to make Negronis at my tasting room, and I wasn't excited about what was out there in New York State. I can't serve anything that's not from New York State, so
Right.
I was like, okay, we have to figure this out. And it took me like a year because, of course, playing with 15 botanicals and getting them to live together, marry well together, and it was really tricky. And it was the first time that I worked with something that complex and in the mash bill. But Pollinator gin is really the base for our Amaro, and I think that's where I have to really call it
They're
an
both botanical spirits.
Right. Yeah, they really
Yeah.
are. It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, see, this always fascinates me because this is something that has actually come up a lot on this show. As New York has, I think, very wisely put in this regulation that if you have a tasting room like yours, you can only serve spirits that were made in New York State.
Yeah.
And also, we just had the guys from Tip Top on a little while ago talking about the math doesn't math if you're putting green chartreuse in a canned last word. So how do you figure out how to kind of get those flavors?
Yeah.
And I find it very interesting, the process of sort of, trying to clone these very well-known, very specific flavors versus, I would be really interested to know where you came down on this, Claire. Did you kind of look at it and you're like, well, I want to make a total, get as close as I can to a 1-to-1 of Campari? Or with the base you had, were you kind of like, you know what? I kind of want to maybe tweak some things, maybe raise the volume on some, maybe bring it down on others. What was that process like for you?
Yeah, I think that's really how it happened, Greg, because Campari to me now is so predictable almost. It lays a little flat to me, not multifaceted enough. Yes, it is absolutely consistent, and it gives you that profile, color, all those things that we go for. But it's really nice to see a little more diversity come into it, a little more play.
I love that we live in a world where we're just used to Campari now.
Yeah.
Go
back to
foie gras again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we've come a long way.
It's true. I mean, it's wild. Listen, it was born out of necessity.
Right. Yeah.
And as most good things are, right? You have to have it. So yeah, I think I'm gonna actually show. I mean, the color of this thing. It's cochineal color, right? So that in itself is pretty neat. I think there is it's herbaceous and more expressive, brighter. I really wanted something that was a little more expressive, definitely, and not more of like a bitter agent, in a cocktail. And I think we got it. Makes a great spritz too.
Yeah, cochineal. So you're using the beetle to color this?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
amazing.
am. Yeah.
Listen, I also think it's important to not, I've made a few bitters now that are out there in the world, and there's no chance on earth that I would try and make an analog to Angostura, right? Angostura is its thing, right? I'm not coming for the king here. I'm going to make something that's, that's my own and that's unique and that offers people, the consumer, another alternative, So I don't think that you should go down the road of trying to replicate or clone. You should go down the road of saying okay, I'm going to understand the category and I'm going to make a delicious option within the confines of the category.
Yeah, yes. Thank you for that, Sother. It's true. That's exactly it. That in your own, there's a feeling of a little bit of discomfort, talking about, comparing to Campari because, oh my God, it's the pinnacle, and so there really wasn't, a desire to clone it. It really, it's how. What can I? And I have to tell you, it makes a really nice Negroni. So I think we did it.
Well, let's get into it. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about how I feel like your first outing was rye whiskey, and later came gin. That's pretty backwards from everybody else, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, leave it to me to figure that out. I could have
First, we
taken the
started
easy
with
road,
bees.
but I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of my attraction, or the first idea for me in distilling was rye and honey made sense. Like it
Mhm.
was, it was the marriage of something that was very authentic to me, that connection to honey and bees, pollinators, and then my love for whiskey, and then rye being such a wonderful thing to grow in New York State in
Mhm.
particular, you know. And so after that, of course, I opened my own distillery in 2018, and then came the vodka and gin, So Pollinator was born then in 2018. So I did do it backwards completely. People were like, "Oh, so where's your vodka?" No, no, I just make the rye, What?
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, talk
So
to
what
me
do
a little
you
bit about
what
like
was okay.
how did that gap in time go when you started making the whiskey, but you can't sell it for several years until it's aged? You were just sustaining yourself on selling honey and making whiskey every day that you can't sell for several years?
So I started in 2010. I approached a distillery in New York State to
Hmm.
make this for me.
Right.
And so we
Contract
went through
distilling, common
the
process, right?
process distillery. Yeah, the distilling process together. It took 3 years to kind of get barrels that were good enough for us to, start blending. So that 3-year period, I was completely focused on honey and building that out, and in 2013 is when the rye was launched. And by 2018, there were enough barrels out there in the marketplace that I was able to blend together. I blend 3 barrels per batch,
Hmm.
and I had enough out there, access to enough really beautiful barrels, that was just, I didn't miss not making my own at that moment.
Hmm.
Um, but then in 2018 is when I started making, actually distilling my own whiskeys, which are now coming to be, and that's the single barrel stuff that is just it's really, really nice. So I've taken it out there. Yeah, I would love to have you all taste that and tell me what you think too.
Heck yeah.
But we need to get a
Sure.
package out to you for sure.
Yeah.
All this talk of single barrel makes me think you have all these apiaries, all these beehives. Is there such a thing as like single hive honey? Or do you
Oh
blend it
yeah.
all together?
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. There's a guy in New York City that actually you could he has hives all over the city, all over boroughs. So he actually could tell you this is from West 86th Street
The
and this
honey
is from
sommelier.
Bushwick. Yeah, of course. That's the other thing.
You
That
can
was the
really
nice
taste the burrow in this.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
This one must be just over Katz's Deli because I'm getting a lot of rye and pastrami off this honey.
Ah,
Yeah, mustard and sauerkraut flavors.
richer, meatier notes. Yeah, exactly.
That said, well, let's talk about the Negroni. You keep saying rye whiskey and honey, and I'm like, yeah, grapefruit. You've got a brown derby, right? I mean,
Right.
that's that. What other cocktails do you like to make with your spirits?
Well, one that I wanted to actually bring up to you today is the very wonderful, historically notable bee's knees, because of course,
Mhm.
honey, lemon,
Oh yeah.
gin, pollinator gin in particular makes a really, really good bee's knees. It's has citrus notes. The botanicals that I include in it are juniper, coriander, lemon peel, orris root, angelica. It's a corn-based whiskey,
Hmm.
and gin. I'm sorry, and so it's 100% corn,
Cool.
organic. We get it all up in the Ithaca area from a group called Farmer Ground. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're amazing. They grow incredible grains. And so there's a lot of flavor to it. It's 45 ABV, a little hotter than most. gins, but it's just smooth, really smooth. Makes a beautiful bee's knees. It's like quintessential, gin for that, I think.
It's actually my bee tattoo right here.
Oh wow, look at that.
I used to work with a gin company based out of New York, out of
Yeah.
Brooklyn, called Brooklyn Gin. And
Makes sense.
so I was
Tracks.
the global brand ambassador for them, and then a couple of the other brand ambassadors. We went out one night during BCB and got buddy tattoos. And there's our bees, and they say
Nice.
"achoo," and mine says "bless you." So it's a bee sneeze.
Aw.
Bee sneeze. Get it? Okay.
Oh, I
Anyway,
love it.
So,
Damon
yeah.
with the puns. Tattooed on his arm.
I love
I got the "bless you" instead of the "achoo." So, because I'm a Southern gentleman.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Funny
I love
yet
the bee's
polite.
knees, and again, that's one that kind of come a full circle to talking about seasonal cocktails. Like
it. Mhm.
that one to me it's great year round, right? I mean, it's obviously it's a citrusy light cocktail, so it makes sense in the summertime. But going back to the idea of citrus being more of a winter crop traditionally, I mean and I think there's something about the honey that kind of ties you kind of historically to like things like hot toddies, right?
Mhm.
And things that are kind of
Without a doubt.
like
Mhm.
things that they're like ailments, right? So like honey is something that honey's actually. Did you know this, that honey is the oldest food in the world? They've found like jars of honey from like 4,000 plus years ago, and it's still good. So
Yeah.
honey
Yeah.
never turns also,
No,
so like
exactly.
it's a
Yeah.
really like I love that when we first started talking about this, you're talking about kind of like this deep dive into the hive. That's gonna be the name of the show. Um but it is really fascinating. I'm like crazy allergic to them, but I've always found them, I mean, fascinating enough to where I got a tattoo of one on me. But it's kind of like it's a wonderful like world and ecosystem. Like
Mhm.
it's its own thing, and it is. I mean, I understand why people like you become so interested in it, and enough to like create a whole brand around it. It's really cool. And we at my wedding we gave jars of honey. We had like labels made
Yeah.
with our wedding date and stuff on them, and everyone left with jars of local honey from out here in
It's so
Marin
cool.
County. And because part of it, we did two things. We gave away flower packets, seed packets with California poppies, and then
Awesome.
the honey. So it was really kind of like the idea, not too far off from your fascination with it. We were like, well, we want flowers for people to grow, but those are the pollinators, and then here's the honey, and the honey was kind of like a sign of like longevity,
Mhm.
for
Right.
hopefully for us.
Yeah.
Hope
Yeah.
she's not listening to this. But it is
She gets it.
it's a fascinating world, and I hope
Yeah.
all that for you as well. I hope this brand goes on forever and
Thank
gets
you.
bigger, and your hive grows, and
Thank you so
we
much.
would absolutely love to come visit your distillery. And here's the thing, I love seeing bars and restaurants, like in at this point people know this about me, and they invite me to come check out their spots while they're still under construction, because I love seeing how these things are put together. And
Yeah.
me being a bar and restaurant owner myself, it's like my favorite thing was building it, and
Mhm.
so when you say that
Yeah.
it's a production facility and it's not this like pretty like Scotch distillery with big copper pot stills that look like they don't ever function, it's like
Yeah.
I actually like seeing places that are. I remember going to see my buddy Tito at his distillery 25 years ago
Yeah.
outside of Austin, Texas, and he built his still. I mean, obviously it's a behemoth of a brand now, but he was just making vodka out in the country, and he would sit out there all night like a moonshiner with his rifle, because people like tweakers were coming by trying to steal booze from him. And and collecting wild dogs and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm sure it's way different. At yours, it's another thing you talked about, like the agricultural side of, the, I guess we kind of say rural New York. But it's magical farmland. I love it when I moved to New York City and I would hear all these people I'd worked with. They're like, yeah, I just want to like move upstate and like work on a farm. I'm like, are you crazy? Like, I'm thinking like a farm, like my farm in Oklahoma, like where it's flat dirt land. Like, I'm like, you're going to hate that. And then I went upstate for the first time. I was like, this is totally not what I was thinking. This is like straight out of a movie. It's beautiful and it's great. It's just so cool. So yeah, we definitely want to swing by sometime.
Yeah, let's do it. Well, we're going to get you some packages for sure. So you could taste some of these beauties. And I have a Nocino also that I just launched.
Oh,
cool. Thoughts on that too. And those are fun.
I'd love to see the honey. At the top of the show, you mentioned, that it's through Baldor, and I wrote it down.
Yeah, I'll send you some honey for sure. I mean, it's wonderful up there. We're very, very fortunate.
Obviously, love that you're willing to send us stuff, and that's great. But where can our listener find you and follow along and get a hold of your products?
Yeah, so definitely hit us online, pollinatorspirits.com. We are actually working on our website as we speak. So in a couple of weeks, it's going to relaunch and it's going to be even better. But you could also catskillprovisions.com for, some of our honey and other products as well. They both are sister websites at the moment. So, but pollinatorspirits.com will take you where you want to go for sure. And then you'll know where to, you'll see where we're served, all the bars and restaurants, and where you can buy us also at shops. But you can shop online too now in New York State, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Claire, thank you so much for coming in and joining us
Thank you.
on the Speakeasy.
You guys are amazing. Really.
This is a ton of fun. You made me really want to go up and do some leaf peeping and drink some whiskey and just hang out. Get some fresh air. Get away from it all for a little while.
Too, up there. The winter's great. Like, don't listen to anybody telling you that it's like,
I don't know. I'm a bit of a lizard, so I tend to hibernate. I'm coming up. I'm currently eating my body weight in honey right now, so I can sleep from November until March. So I'll see y'all then in the spring. But for now, that's going to do it for us this week on the Speakeasy. As always, if you want to hear more from Damon and Sother and me, sign up and become a regular on our Patreon page. Regulars get access to all kinds of good stuff like sponsor-free listening, video podcasts, cocktail recipes from all of our guests, bonus episodes, and a free cocktail kit each and every month from our good friends at Shaker and Spoon, who are in the middle of doing a Kickstarter with you. Isn't that right, Sother?
That's right. We're doing the Better with Bitters experience. The journey continues, right? Last year we did the Better with Bitters experience. It's a box that we send you full of 12 different varieties of bitters. And then we have 3 cocktails that we experiment by doing side-by-side tastings using different bitters to show just what bitters can bring to the party. And then we've got companion videos that go along with that of me making the drinks along with you. There's all kinds of cool add-ons that you can get at the Kickstarter campaign. So check that out at Kickstarter and join in on the fun. It's a ton of fun.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations. And as always, we're going to have a link to that in the show notes. Also, HRN is doing its first ever listener survey right now. That link is going to be in the show notes too. And upon completion of the survey, you will be entered to win a $250 gift card to Goldbelly. And once you complete the survey, we will automatically think that you are super cool, because these things really do help us out,
they really
improve the show and other great programs here at HRN. And we really appreciate it. And of course, be sure to tune in next week when our guest is going to be Metu Perrin, who is going to come on and tell me how to pronounce his name, from Gardner Gin. So the gin journey continues. We'll catch you back then. But for now, cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
So you don't charm the devil with your rock.
The Speakeasy is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food and drink radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.
Hey listeners, thank you so much for listening to HRN. We want to make your experience as a listener even better, and to help us do that, we'd love your input on our audience survey. It'll only take a few minutes, and by completing it, you can enter to win a $250 gift card from Goldbelly. Visit heritageradionetwork.org/survey to take the survey and to help us keep growing and improving. That's heritageradionetwork.org/survey. Thanks for your support.